There we go. All right. It is 6:30 p.m. I call this regular meeting of the Littleton City Council for March 1st, 2022 to order. Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Schlachter,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ryden, Councilmember Barr,
Present.
Councilmember Driscoll,
Here.
Councilmember Grove, here, Councilmember Milliman, here, Councilmember Valdez. We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, council, any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. All right, next order of business is comments or reports. City manager?
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I just want to bring the council and the public's attention to the tentative calendar. As council knows, we post that on our web page. You can go to the main page, top of the bar, meetings, and then eventually you'll see a tag for the tentative calendar. So coming out of the council retreat, you know, this here in early February, I guess mid-February, staff takes a lot of the direction there and we start to schedule a lot of meetings. So things that may have been tentative here beginning of the year now are going to become a little bit more solid. So a couple things I just want to point out. So the March 15th regular meeting is going to be canceled because 3 of you are going to be at National League of Cities conference, the annual conference. Then on March 22nd, we had a study session. I had originally planned a conversation with about Littleton Village. When you look at what we also had scheduled, and specifically the council work plan around arts and culture, I'm also anticipating we'll probably talk about potential ballot issues beyond just lodging tax, charter changes, and the like. So I see an expanded conversation there. So I've taken the Littleton Village issue and I've put it to April 19th, and we have a special study session. So you can see that's
City manager, do you mean Littleton Village or Geneva Village?
Oh, Geneva Village, excuse me. Yeah, did I say Littleton Village? Oh, boy. Beg your pardon. Geneva Village. And staff has also engaged a consultant to kind of help us flesh out some details around some options, so we need a little bit more time. So the combination of just other things on the agenda for the 22nd and additional work here with a consultant, Geneva Village is going to be moved to a special study session on the 19th. So you'll see that reflected on the tentative calendar. We're also starting to schedule some of the meetings here with our boards and commissions. You'll start to see that here in the next couple of weeks. More specifically, we're looking at some of the outside agencies and starting to schedule that. So we have on April 22nd a meeting with the LPS School Board. This is an annual meeting that we've had in the past. That is now being scheduled. I have a request from South Suburban. We're going to be meeting with them in June. I don't have that quite on the calendar yet, but that's another board and commission we're starting to schedule. So again, anything that's in red is something we've made a change to in the past week, so it can, both the council and the public can kind of track what we're now scheduling. So again, just some changes here that I just wanted to point out and bring to the council and the public's attention. So with that, that is my report for this evening.
Thank you. City attorney?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, City Council, we'll start with Councilmember Barr.
Just a real quick report out, Mr. Mayor. For the Littleton Public Schools, some announcements went out recently about the Explorative Pathways for Innovative Careers EPIC campus that will be opening August 23rd in 2023. Check out the LPS website about that. It's going to be a real boon, not just for graduating students to look at alternative careers other than necessarily the college track, but it's going to be a great project for families and parents and stuff like that to become more engaged with the school system as well. So I just wanted to draw your guys' attention to that. No particular update from Dr. Cog other than that they are going to be going into their work planning session in April, and I'll plan on attending that. It's going to be all day on a Saturday, I believe, on the, well, early April. So that's coming up, the Dr. Cog work plan session. But other than that, no other announcements or notifications. Thanks.
Thanks. Councilmember Grove?
Yeah, a few updates. First of all, last week we met with South Suburban, the leadership team from the city, as well as Kelly Millman and myself. And they have a new deputy, Eileen Matheson, taking Mike Bratton's place, and she is promoted from within. They are kicking off their master plan update that's like 4 or 5 years old, and they're getting their community involved and hope to get that done by the end of the year, which will follow on our master plan. Hopefully, we can start that mid-year, and then we can dovetail with them. Our master plan is a bit outdated and a little bit on the vague side, and we need to update it for the different needs of the community and a broader demographic. And Kelly is going, yes, 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 yes. They are also, South Suburban is also going to get us a list of their projects, which I think we need to know what's going on. So we'll distribute that to council. If you haven't heard, you know the bubble blew down in the storm, and they are using the old ice arena, and they have 4 indoor courts there. So tennis players can play there. There's only 4 courts. At the tennis bubble, there were 6. Speaking of the tennis bubble, it is not going to be a bubble anymore. It is going to be a building, and they are going to start that hopefully in June, and it should be done in about 9 months. And hopefully they will have an expanded restaurant, which I've been kind of talking to them about. There's no real good place to eat compared to the golf course at Colorado and County Line. It's a lovely place to eat, but the one at Littleton Golf and Tennis isn't. They are trying to work to get a concert series going this summer at Hudson Gardens. It hasn't been easy. There's a lot of struggling with talent, contracts, and especially opt-out and things due to COVID. So they're working on it. Hasn't happened yet. Talked about the annual meeting. One thing that's near and dear to our heart is Jackass Hill. And they finally are getting close to having a consultant. And they have a proposal and a plan, and they need to get the contract signed. Once that happens, then they will go out to the community again and hopefully put together a plan that'll mitigate some of the issues that we've been having out there. For those of you that don't know, it was just loved to death, and some of the people that came there just weren't very respectful to the neighbors. Late nights, drinking, firecrackers, whatever. And the park does close at 11. So looking at that and getting that phased in, hopefully sooner rather than later, but realistically probably next year. South Suburban has also done some mitigation on the Ridgeview Pond, made it safer and visibly more appealing. So they are working on that. And getting water into that pond or deciding what to do with that pond will be part of our water resource master plan. And hopefully that will go out to RFP here in the spring. And I think that's it with South Suburban. Second thing I want to mention, the mayor and I attended a luncheon with a local nonprofit called Love, Inc. And it's a faith-based organization, but it was very interesting to hear what they do for the members of our community in terms of helping people that and referring them if there's housing insecurity, food insecurity. They have a program that helps people with careers, and you do not have to be a member of a church, although they have church members and they get money from them and money from the business community. But I just thought I would mention it. Couple other things. They have a gently used store, and it's called, what is it called? Renewed Treasures, and it's 6512 South Broadway. So an alternative if you want to shop or donate to some of the other places. They also did some brainstorming on housing, and I thought they came up with some really interesting thoughts about affordable housing. Nothing they're going to implement today or tomorrow, but as this is coming up to us and something we've been talking about, some of the ideas they came up with: would a developer invest in housing and offer housing at a more affordable rate? I mean, something we haven't talked about. It's an option I've not heard before. matching people who have extra rooms in their house with those that need a place to stay that's more affordable than buying their own home or renting a place. Getting donation for funds for people to get a mortgage on a down payment. And then other programs like they have in our mountain towns with incentives and housing, and that's more where we play. But some of these other ideas I thought were interesting, and that was just our table. There was conversations going on throughout the luncheon, so of interest. And the last thing I wanted to mention is Councilmember Ryden and I are going to have a citizen meeting for all Littleton citizens. Mark your calendar for Saturday, May 14th. It's going to be from 10 to 11. And because we didn't know what was going on with COVID, we decided to have it outside at Stern Park at the South Pavilion. We'll give you some quick updates about what's going on in the city, and then there'll be an opportunity to have Q&A and one-on-one conversations. So we look forward to having as many people there as possible. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Valdez?
No report.
Councilmember Milliman?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just a couple things. The Housing Task Force met on February 14th for their monthly meeting. Not a lot to report other than they are still actively working on the inclusionary housing ordinance in conjunction with root policy. So very happy about that. More to come in the future. My husband and I attended Little Shop of Horrors on Friday night at the Town Hall Art Center. If you have not gone to see that show, I don't know when it ends, but go and see it. It is fantastic. They did an amazing job. The set design was beautiful. Please go support our local theater. It was so great. I cannot emphasize that enough. And then this is just, I'm a little homesick today. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody. Laissez les bon temps rouler.
Thank you. Councilmember Driscoll?
Yes, on February 8th, we had our first meeting with our consultant called Puma, and that's to discuss the potential of creating a DDA, or a Downtown District Authority. We have our group of people put together, and over the next 6 months or so, we'll figure out if that's the right avenue to take for downtown and lay out the zone that would include. So this is not for the entire city as when it comes to a vote, if it gets that far. If it comes to a vote, it'll be for only those people that live in that district. So more to come on the DDA. It's a great opportunity for the city to really take a look at, and I should say the owners, the people that live down there, take a look at how they want their city to look, especially after the Denver water comes through, and how we put it back together. So fun times.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ryden?
No report.
All right, I just have a few things. First, last Friday, we hosted the Arapahoe County Mayors, Commissioners, City Managers meeting here. It was great to have people into the room, and it's the first time most of those people have seen the room. City Manager gave a great report on the success of 3A last year, which was well received by those in attendance because they had some interest in doing something similar in their own municipalities. Second, I attended a Mile High Flood District meeting a few weeks ago, and they announced that they closed or put in an offer and was accepted on a new building. The current building is near downtown, kind of at Spear and I-25-ish area, but the new building is going to be kind of over 6th and Sims-ish area. I can't remember the exact address, but they'll close, I think, in 60 days. And they want to do some renovations before they move over there, so that's kind of exciting. Ironically, the building that they're in now was gravely damaged by a flood. So that was part of one of the issues that they're leaving when the pipes burst over the holidays. This Friday, I will be attending a South Metro Denver Chamber Forum and the Lone Tree Arts Center from 7:30 to 9 with various other mayors in the South Metro area talking about business or economic development and business relationships. So we'll be doing that. And then lastly, just want to acknowledge that today, March 1st, is the start of Women's History Month, and recognize that and all the great accomplishments from women throughout history. And so that's all I have for my report. So next on the agenda is citizens' appearances, of which we have none. Next up after that is public comment. you wish to address the city council under public comment, please sign in the public speaker form before the call or before the meeting in order to speak. You'll be limited to 3 minutes. City council is not authorized by the Colorado Open Meetings Law to discuss, comment, or take action at the meeting on any issue raised by public comment that is not part of tonight's agenda. I may refer a matter to the city manager or city attorney for immediate comment after the public comment, or to abstain, for staff to obtain additional information and report back to the councils as appropriate. We have one person signed up on the list, Pam Chapman.
Good evening, council. My name is Pam Chapman. I live a block and a half from here, so a few things. Goes T got launched. It's goes 18 now, and it's up there, satellite separated from the launch vehicle. All looks good so far. Great news, assembled at Lockheed Martin, so great work by everybody so far. I want to respond to something in the report which you know outrages me, so I am upset. The DDA or bid gives government power to private interests. Private interests, property owners. That is not the way, that is not why American government was invented. American government was invented as a counterbalance to special interests in the East India Trading Company who priced tea too high. You give government powers to private interests and you get abuse, I believe. And I'm going to say that all of these discussions, even though they would give our power, your power, to private interests, have been out of public view, not published. They are done by people with special interests. It's outrageous. And the concept that people downtown are participating in it is wrong. It's false. The people who are impacted are not included because we've said this is a gem of the whole city. Have you folks invited the whole city to see what they're doing? No. No, there's no minutes. It's outrageous. And I would like you, council, to intervene and stop this. At least make it transparent and accountable. Second, February 1 minutes, I believe in my public comment, I preferred repeal of the Aspen Grove approval, not referral to voters. It says I was wishy-washy. I wasn't. I'm also going to mention that there are no minutes for your retreat. 16 hours of meetings, discussion, information, and direction to staff. Now, I already feel, and I'm on record, that study sessions go too far in giving direction to staff. You should hear from the public before you give direction to staff. You should have minutes for the retreat for your consideration. And finally, I want to mention homeless coordinator. I like the Tricities homeless group, but council, you could have done so much more and directed staff to do so much more. What about safe to park places or safe to camp places? Those are possible. Why didn't you protect our manufactured home sites in the ULUC? You could still do that. I would like you to do that. These are things you could do now to help people through this really cold winter. I want to see you do more on homelessness. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Seeing no one. The city manager or city attorney have any response or anything to add?
I don't have any response, Mayor.
No response. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, next up, item 7 is consent agenda. Consent agenda items may be adopted by a simple motion. All ordinances must be read by title prior to a vote on the motion. Any consent agenda item may be removed at the request of a council member. Item A is Ordinance 4 of 2022, an ordinance on first reading amending Title 6 of the Littleton City Code pertaining to police regulations. B, Resolution 15 of 2022, approving a contract with Axon Enterprises, Inc. for equipment and services for the Littleton Police Department's body-worn camera and taser programs. C, Resolution 14 of 2022, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Littleton and the Colorado Department of Transportation for reimbursement of costs associated with the Broadway and Littleton Boulevard intersection improvements. D, Ordinance 5, 2022, An ordinance on first reading amending the 2022 Littleton Sewer Utility Enterprise Budget. E, Ordinance 6, 2022, an ordinance on first reading amending the 2022 Littleton Stormwater and Flood Management Utility Enterprise Budget. F, ID 2237, motion to approve authority, board, and commission appointments. G, ID number 2231, motion to approve minutes of the February 1st, 2022 virtual regular meeting. H, ID 2249, motion to approve minutes of the February 22nd, 2022 special meeting.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items A through H.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items A through H. Any discussion? All right, I'll call the vote here. It's been a while. See if I can do that. All right, we should be ready to go. Looks like everyone.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Accept. All right, next up on the agenda is, I think I hit. Is general business. We have one item under general business tonight. It is Resolution 16 of 2022, approving an intergovernmental agreement for the provisions of homeless coordinator services. We will have a staff presentation, and council can ask questions if you have any. Then we'll need a motion and a second on the resolution, and if there's further discussion, we can do so prior to a vote. Turn it over to the city manager.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to turn this over to Sam Fox, our assistant to the city manager, who has been participating with the homeless Tri-City Committee here for, 3 years now? And obviously, the council's aware of the work that we've been doing on this front, and it has been a pretty engaging process here. I think we've certainly learned a lot. We've collected a lot of information and data, and I think the Tri-Cities has made, my opinion, a excellent attempt to try to kind of manage this issue. And I think that we've engaged Arapahoe County at a level that we didn't envision here, 3 or 4 years ago. And I think to their credit, they've recognized the opportunity here to partner with us as the Tri-Cities. And so with that, Sam Fox, I'm going to let you kind of describe a little bit more detail what this resolution is about this evening.
Thank you, City Manager. Council, Sam Fox, Assistant to the City Manager. We do have a presentation. It'll be up here just shortly. I do want to give you a little bit of history, though. We are here tonight to review the Tri-Cities Homeless Action Plan Coordinator, IGA. Just a second. There we go. Okay. This IGA is with the Arapahoe County, Inglewood, and Sheridan, and this person will be asked to implement the Tri-Cities Homeless Action Plan. Some background, so this committee formed late 2018. Our first effort was committee education. Do we even all agree on definitions? Do we understand the picture of this environment? In 2020, we started doing more research. We did a pestle analysis. We hired DU to do 2 studies, one on chronic homelessness and one on family homelessness. All of this work fed into our homeless action plan, which we brought Florence Lee's Advancement Network in to do for us. And this is an action plan that partnered with Metro Denver Homeless Initiative, many service providers, to find out that, to identify just the best actions based on our unique data to bring our Tri-Cities forward and make a difference in this area. The action plan is 3 years, 2022 through 2025, so we are officially 2 months into this action plan. The city's share of estimated cost for the action plan is $350,000. Now, I will caveat that does not include a navigation center or the capital for a ready-to-work program for Bridge House if that were brought into the community. We are recommending our funding come from ARPA. And I want to give you an update on the status. At 2 months in, we're actually 6% complete, so we've been able to check off a couple of those action steps. we launched a community program called Cross Purpose for education in that workforce education category. We're working on actively about 27% of this, and the rest of this is still to come. So the coordinator position would be 3 years. This would be through the end of 2024. We are recommending ARPA funding. Littleton share is about $132,000 or $44,000 per year. The relationship with this is the county would hire and oversee to really best connect those resources there. Tricities will play a role in not only paying for this, but providing the work plan and the regular connections on how the work is going and priorities. There will be monthly reporting, so monthly to the Tri-Cities, annually to councils and Board of County Commissioners, and then they'll also be completing an annual report that we can share more publicly. Our recommendation tonight is for you to approve this IGA and continue this partnership with the Tri-Cities and the county. And that is the end of my slide deck, if you have any questions.
Any questions, Councilmember Grove?
The Navigation Center and the Ready to Work program, how much will those cost and what will the city share be? You may have said it in the past, but I can't remember.
You know, that's a fair question. So the Navigation Center, there are a lot of different models and options we could choose. It's too soon to know what the cost will be like there. Actually, the first step identified in the action plan is a year 2 action step on a pre-feasibility study to really refine what that need could be for our community. Now, I'll share, we are also working with the state and other partners to identify what unique funding opportunities there might be through ARPA coming down those channels, and so we'll continue to look at those partnership opportunities as we move forward.
And does that include offices and a place for people to come and
It
get
could.
services?
Yeah, it could include day services, it could include services right there, or it could just be a connection to other services.
And the Ready to Work program, is that how much do you think that, or that's too soon too?
It's too soon, yep. We've got a pre-feasibility study, so they're working on that feasibility, which will redefine those. And again, there's some options there. If there's a building that's already set that they can move into versus trying to build something new, right? What are those modifications? That could vary greatly.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions? I don't see any. Anyone have a motion?
I would like to move to approve Resolution 16-2022, approving an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, for the provision of homeless coordinator services.
Second.
I think Councilmember Milliman was louder there. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 16 of 2022, authorizing an IGA with Arapahoe County and the cities of Inglewood and Sheridan for the provision of homeless coordinator services. Any discussion?
I'm excited.
All right, I'll try to bring up the voting again here then. Here we go.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Council.
Next item of business, number 9, is ordinances on second reading and public hearing. We have one ordinance on second reading tonight that will have a public hearing. Ordinance 2 of 2022, an ordinance on second reading amending Ordinance 27, Series 2021, known as the Annual Appropriation Bill for all municipal purposes of the City of Littleton, counties of Arapahoe, Douglas, and Jefferson, State of Colorado, for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022. We'll have a staff presentation, after which council can ask questions if necessary. Then I'll open the public hearing, and we can have any follow-up after that public hearing. Then we'll need a motion and a second on the ordinance, followed by further discussion and a vote. So I'm going to turn it over to the city manager.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to promptly turn this over to Tiffany Hooton, our finance director. As the council knows, we have been discussing with you for the last few months some potential changes here to our 2022 budget. Takes an appropriation bill, and this is what's being considered here this evening at second reading. So there's a lot of detail here that Tiffany Hooton's going to go ahead and step us through here. So Tiffany, I'll turn it over to you.
And hopefully we can get the presentation going. Perfect. Good evening, council and council members. Before you this evening, I'm Tiffany Hooten, Finance Director. Sorry, I always forget that part. Before you tonight, we have a budget amendment. It's Ordinance 2-2002. The purpose is to actually amend the 2022 budget annual appropriation. We have 4 items that we're discussing this evening. One are general fund requests. The second is the 3A capital improvement project requests, and then American Rescue Plan Act requests, and also a 2021 encumbrance carryover. A number of these items have been discussed at various meetings previously, a couple of study sessions in January and February, and then we also did discuss a number of these at the council retreat on the 11th and 12th. The first item is general fund requests. If you recall, when we prepared the 2022 budget, we did give notice to council that if our revenues were continuing to increase as we were seeing during the middle and end of 2021, there's a potential that we would come back to council to ask for additional appropriation to address some immediate needs throughout the organization. And that is why we are here before you this evening for those general fund requests. We have a number of new personnel asks. We have a program asks. The city, along with other jurisdictions in the area, are having concerns and issues with the labor market, and so we would like to add some market adjustments and offer some retention and hiring incentives throughout the organization as needed. A number of the personnel are a public information officer for the Littleton Police Department, enhancing the library and museum funding for personnel back to 100%, which are pre-COVID levels, adding a cybersecurity analyst, a transportation planner, and the cost for that position will be split between the general fund and the 3A fund. We also have some modifications to the Public Works hierarchy and some reclassifications that will allow for some supervision changes in that area. We have the Littleton Immigrant Resource Center. If you recall, we had a discussion on this, and this is to bring that to the option 2 that we had discussed previously. The asset technician is a 50% split between general fund and the sewer utility enterprise, and you will see that adjustment for the sewer utility enterprise on second reading on April 5th. We have a grounds maintenance worker. I mentioned labor concerns and issues, so we are adding some market adjustments of about $170,000 across the organization, and then also addressing some of the retention and hiring incentives that we are dealing with, and that will be a one-time cost. The total of these general fund requests is about $1.35 million, and as I mentioned, our revenues came in much stronger in 2021 than we had anticipated, of about $2.4 million. So these will apply to that $2.4 million excess that we saw in 2021 and going forward. So there is adequate fund balance for these amendments. The second item is the 3A capital improvement project requests. This is directly related to the ballot question where citizens did approve a 0.75% sales tax increase. We are creating an internal fund to manage all of those revenues and expenditures related to that. So we are asking immediately to hire a senior project manager to help manage all of those new projects that we're going to be working on, and then also a transportation planner, and we will share this cost with the general fund as mentioned previously. We also have included some federal grant match requirements for Santa Fe and Mineral and the widening of county line. These are federal grants that we have received over the past few years, and we are required to meet our 20% match on those projects. The third one is related to American Rescue Plan Act. We had mentioned and discussed at the retreat that staff would like to recommend funding these by categories: technology, equipment, community, and newer increased services. The city was allocated $12,081,126. What our ask of council is with this appropriation amendment is to actually appropriate the full $12 million. So we've already appropriated 1.5, so this would be the remaining amount. And we have identified and allocated about $9.4 million of that, in addition to the 2.1 previously. So there is still about $516,000 remaining in ARPA. The intention is that we will provide periodic reporting on the progress of all of these projects to council in the form of a memo or a report, and we will just do that periodically over the next 2 to 3 years. The last item is something that we do on an annual basis. These are to carry over any open purchase orders or encumbrances from a previous year. A lot of times projects aren't able to be completed in the year that we budget them. And so we have already allocated those funds out of that budget year. So we would like to continue and carry those those funds over into the 2022 budget so that we can complete those projects. Like I mentioned, this is an annual process. We bring this forward to council the first quarter of every year, and it varies depending on what projects are still open and haven't been completed. And this is just a best practice for us to reappropriate these in the next year. There's a lengthy list attached to the council communication with the details of what those are. I know the total looks really large. It's 11.9 million. Just remember 5.2 million is related to grants that we have entered into or been granted, and we need to carry out those grant requirements. And then capital projects is about 2.9 million as well. Again, just a summary, the ARPA ask of 10.5, the encumbrance total of 11.9, the general fund and 3A improvement fund and sewer utility at 3.8, and the total is about 26.3 million. Staff does recommend approval of this ordinance on second reading, amending the 2022 appropriation. And again, we will continue to manage the expenditures related to these projects and services over the years. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Council have any questions? Seeing no questions, we'll go to the public hearing portion of this. I'll open the public hearing at 7:07 and allow anyone who's signed up to speak to this ordinance. There is no one signed up. Would anybody care to speak?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm still Pam Chapman. I still have a block and a half from here. So I'm troubled by this budget. I don't think most people in the city understand what's in it. And as I mentioned, 11 million looks large, but 9 million still looks large to me, even if 2.5 is already allocated. And I'm going to tell you, that was at the retreat. It was presented at the retreat. The buckets are really big. There was no details provided for many of those $1 million items. This is federal tax money. We still pay federal taxes. Just because it's not city taxes doesn't mean that we're not committed to knowing what's in it and what we're getting for it and what you're going to spend it on. I don't think that the city has been transparent and accountable for this budget, especially the ARPA allocations. And again, having some kind of notes from that retreat would have been at least a step toward the city trying to make the people aware of what the city is doing with the money. Council, you're accountable. You are electeds. It's on you. It is on you to bring that to us. It was the council retreat. There's nobody else who can do that. It was yours. Staff will do it if you tell them. So those budget discussions should have been much more transparent, and bringing them this quickly further disadvantages the people. So I'm concerned about the budget, and I'm not sure I know what's in there or what it's going to be spent on, and I'm pretty sure I disagree with a number of items. I just want to mention, because I've heard this concern come up in Transportation Mobility Board and other places, under 3A, people and staffing should not be included. I think people and staffing should be included to conduct the projects that were funded by 3A, and I hope you all do and support that. There are dissenters, but that money needs to go to the people to conduct those projects. So I hope you stick to that. So those are my concerns. I don't think the people have good insight into this. I'm really concerned that our money's being used for special interests and not for public interests. Like I mentioned, I think there's some homeless things. For years, our city hasn't housed a single homeless person. Does that make you proud? It doesn't make me proud, and it makes me distressed. We need more visibility into this so we get more citizen engagement so we can tell you what we would like. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing at 7:10 PM. Council?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 022022, an ordinance on second reading amending ordinance 27, series 2021, known as the annual appropriation bill for all municipal purposes of the city of Littleton, counties of Arapahoe, Douglas, and Jefferson, state of Colorado, for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022.
Second.
I think Councilmember Milliman got that. I was looking at her. I don't know where the other voice came from. So we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2 of 2022 on second reading, amending ordinance 27, series 2021, known as the annual appropriation bill for all municipal purposes of the city of Littleton, counties of Arapahoe, Douglas, Jefferson, state of Colorado, for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and ending December 31st, 2022. Mayor?
I'd also like to make another.
Your microphone cut out.
Sorry. I'd like to move to amend section 1 of that ordinance to increase the general fund by an additional $91,286, thereby amending sections 1 and section 2 by that same amount for the purposes of increased LIRC funding.
I second that wholeheartedly.
We have a motion to amend and a second. Any discussion, Councilmember Ryden? Or
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ryden?
So based on the conversation, council members and our public, from the last conversation we had, it was at a study session in January. The majority of council at that time agreed that the LIRC is an important community resource and service, and agreed to fund it at least partially, while we looked at other sources of funding and, regional partnerships. So since that time, several council members, myself included, have really spoken with different possible regional allies on this issue, and we've had some success. We also kind of learned, though, that funding the program only partially will undermine the regional approach that we're really trying to take. So with that in mind, I'm proposing this amendment that we fully fund it at this time. We can continue to look at it each year, but I'd love to hear from my other fellow council members.
Any other comments? Councilmember Barr?
Sure, I'll speak on this just because I was one who voted to partially fund the LIRC at the previous meeting, and so I'd like to at least give a reasonable explanation as to why I'm going to change my vote in support of increasing the funding. And I am doing so because I've actually, taken the time to speak with city staff and look at other options out there with regards to immigrant resources, especially and specifically legal services. I think it was a kind of an assumption. I mean, not an assumption, moreover, than just a passing statement that these services could really be found elsewhere. But digging further into this, our LIRC offers quite a unique set of legal services that other nonprofits in the area do not. It is a matter of pride, even for me as a city, to be a municipality that is unique among other municipalities that can offer these kinds of services. There aren't other municipal structures that do so. In addition to that, I want to say too that at the time I made that initial vote, I wanted to say we would be exploring other funding options. I've got a conversation this Friday with about 5 or 6 different senior staff members over at Dr. Cog to start integrating the LIRC funding in the long term into their senior resources and planning department. And the reason for that too is that it was brought to my attention that a majority of the recipients of the aid out of the LIRC tend to be senior citizens or less capable of using the internet and other means to get those legal resources. And so that spoke to me, and it spoke to, I think, the mission of DRCOG as well. I have not secured funding, and that's not, but that is something that I'm going to be working with DRCOG and city staff to do so in the future. It's a really promising lead. DRCOG has new funding sources for a wide variety of senior services that I think we can not only plug the LIRC into, but also expand those services and be, like Mayor Pro Tem said, a better regional partner, and not just providing senior services, but an important legal service all around. So and lastly, I'll get off the soapbox here in a sec, but after again speaking with staff, my intention of putting this to funding halfway was to sustain operations until we could secure that additional funding. But knowing that staffing will leave, and that staffing by leaving may risk the accreditation of the facility in general as well, it puts it at risk at not being able to be started back up, which was not necessarily my intent. So I've taken the time to educate myself and really start down this road of helping the LIRC look for those additional resources and partnerships. So that's why I'm happy to support funding it again, and just an additional $90K. We were talking in metrics of 9 million just a minute ago, but just an additional $90K to bring that LIRC back up to the service level that they need to support those citizens. So happy to do so, and thanks for the time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilmember Valdez and then Milliman?
Yeah, many of the council members just aren't aware here that about 3 or 4 years ago, we had this very same conversation about finding funding for the program. It is a good program. I don't think there's anybody up here that would challenge that. At that time, 3 or 4 years ago, we said, let's go find more funding. Let's go find more funding. We found no funding. So we keep saying, let's do a regional, but we don't get it. When you go to the LIRC website, they list many locations where they have this service. Inglewood now has a service that they're doing. And for that, I can't support. This is taking it up to about $300,000, which is where it was growing at that time, and it's going to continue to grow. So I can't support this amendment.
Thank you. Councilmember Milliman?
So, I supported this 100% back in the beginning. So, of course, I'm going to support this amendment. And I just want to remind everybody, LIRC has become, it's intricately woven into our community. It's a part of the story of our community. And I don't want to lose that. In addition to the countless numbers of immigrants who have come to our country, to our city, to our county, I look at the volunteers, the number of volunteers who give up their time to spend countless hours with these individuals to try to help them become an American, to assimilate into our country. And I don't want to lose that. I think it is so, so important to this community. And it is, yes, it's $300,000, but in the grand scheme of our budget, it provides so much more pride, benefit. It's just a good thing for our community. And of course, I support it. I have since the beginning. So thanks, Gretchen.
Councilmember Driscoll?
Yeah, I'm going to follow up with what Jerry said. This has never been voter approved. We're spending their money to fund this program, and that's where it comes down to me as a matter of principle. I've talked to a lot of people. Every person I've spoke with doesn't know this program exists. And back to what Jerry said, we keep talking about this regional partnership out there, but again, nobody steps up to the plate. They're going to let Littleton fund this, and then they're just going to let us fund it. They're going to say, you guys got it handled, you don't need our help. That's my concern, just as is Jerry's, and I don't see it going down. I see it going even more expensive. I look at a group like North Littleton Promise, and they're doing it right? They're not relying on the city to pay their bills. They're going out and they're doing fundraisers or holding dances and fun events to raise awareness and to raise some money. So I challenge those people that are so ingrained with IRLC is to, let's do some fundraising. Again, this is a great program, but taxpayers never approved it.
Councilmember Grove.
I was one of the people on the last council did not support this program, mainly because of the dire situation that we were in. Sales tax was, we did not have a good picture. It was COVID. We didn't know how long things were going to last. We looked at having to cut programs that didn't serve a wide number of people in the community. And since then, things have changed. Sales tax has come back up. Our budget is in a healthier position. We're hoping we're talking about endemic instead of pandemic. And I then voted to keep this going with Steve. And since I've done a little bit of talking to people and finding out more about this, beyond just the emails I received from many, many citizens, this is a passion project for our community. There's so many people involved in it. We have so many competing interests for our funds, but we can make sometimes a small impact to a lot of people, maybe fixing a sidewalk or whatever, but this makes a big impact to maybe a smaller number of people. Maybe not everybody is a Littleton citizen, but it shows who our community is. And I think we're learning that this is what people are asking for out of their community, out of their workplace, to help people to be more inclusive. And so I will be supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Just wanted to correct two things Councilmember Grove and Councilmember Barr said. Didn't previously vote on this. You provided your opinion to give staff the right direction to provide us information in the packet here.
I was on the previous council.
I know. Okay, for Councilmember Barr. You may have voted on the first reading of this ordinance a couple weeks ago, but tonight we'll be voting on it. Yeah, I'm going to support this amendment. This is what I was supportive of the study session when we talked about that. My opinion on this, I think, I can't speak to the effort that the staff gave over the past couple of years to find funding, but my guess is the economic downturn and COVID probably played a big role into that. I've already had discussions with Representative David Ortiz, which are probably not going to be fruitful, but Commissioner Carrie Warren Gully for Arapahoe County, she's very interested in that, and I actually presented this issue to the county commissioners and mayors and city managers on Friday morning, and there was a keen interest from the county commissioners about seeing how they can be a partner in this. A couple of them didn't even know it existed, so I think that's a promising step in the right direction there to see if we can work with them. So I will be supporting the amendment to the ordinance here. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, so we are going to have a vote on the amendment to the motion. And the amendment is to amend Section 1 of the ordinance to increase the general fund by an additional $91,286, thereby amending Sections 1 and Section 2 by the same amount for the purpose of increasing LIRC funding. Ready for the question, if I can click the button. Okay, it should be open.
The vote is 5-2 with council members Driscoll and Valdez voting no. The motion carries.
Councilmember Valdez?
I would like to make an amendment to the motion. Again, like I said, I understand it's a great program, and it's a good, feel-good program for a lot of people out there. I realize that. The last two councils have moved to not continue the funding for LIRC long before the pandemic. Both of those councils had time to study the budgets, including the 2022 budget, and agreed to defend the low-priority program, LIRC. Again, it's a low-priority program. LIRC program was determined to be a low-priority program based on the priority-based budgeting process established by our current city manager and staff. Twice, council informed, at least twice, council informed the LIRC program supporters that they needed to find funding elsewhere to support the program. And again, I'm hearing it tonight, we got to go find more program. We've been suggesting that for nearly 4 years. A review of the financials available online that I could find for the nonprofit involved with LIRC indicated that donations averaged approximately $6,000 annually. Not,
Councilmember Valdez, do you have a motion?
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't give the motion.
No.
I'll start over with that again.
Okay.
No, okay. Let me go ahead and finish this, and then I'll do the motion. Does that be okay?
If you're almost done with that.
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, let me do that. You're right. I move to amend the main motion to remove 100, well, now 300 and some thousand, whatever that dollar amount is. It's up to 300,000, whatever that dollar amount is.
You have to have an amount.
What is it? What is it in the main motion?
The main motion
That
was to, well, we'd have to go back and look at Tiffany's budget.
So increase, whatever that dollar amount is, I move to move that amount, and we'll get that in a minute. Because it's changed from what's in the report because it's been an increase, so whatever that motion. So anyway, I move to amend the main motion to remove the funding, the total funding for the LIRC from the general fund request. And if you'll give me the amount, we'll fill that in.
And it would be the main motion as amended, because we already have an approved amendment.
I just,
That's why I said the main.
Well, you said to amend the main motion, but you are
Whatever the
amending the
dollar
main
amount is.
motion as amended.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I have a point of information from Councilmember Valdez.
There's a motion, we got to get a second.
It's a point of information. I
Okay,
can.
sure.
So is the purpose of the amendment to basically negate the previous amendment?
The
To
point
add
of-
funding to the LIRC?
The point of the motion is to not fund whatever this total funding is now, because it was changed, I'm not sure what it is, to not fund, continue funding LIRC.
I have a question, point of information for the city attorney. Is it a proper amendment to negate a previous motion's intent?
So there's nothing within our legislative rules that would necessarily speak to it. However, we defer to Robert's Rules of Order when our legislative rules are silent and in reviewing it, it would seem to be, based upon Robert's Rules of Order, an improper motion. As stated, it would say motions are out of order if they conflict with the motion that has been adopted by the society and has neither been rescinded nor reconsidered and rejected after adoption. So for the matter at hand, we have a motion to amend increasing funding for LIRC that has been approved by the majority of council. And so Mayor Valdez motion to
Council
amend,
member.
if you will, to remove all funding from LIRC would be considered an improper motion under Robert's Rules of Order.
And yet, we've done that in the past. Okay. Okay. I know, I didn't get in there, they planned it so I couldn't get in there in time, so.
All right, so.
So, I'm going to continue, if I may, then with my non-support for the main motion,
You may do so.
because that's where we are, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, okay. So, again, the community has not exactly shown overwhelming financial support for the program. They just have not supplied or shown their support financially. Over the last 2 years, city council and staff have worked hard to trim the city budget, even before the pandemic. After doing so, city council then requested our citizens to approve a necessary large sales tax increase. The citizens approved the increase knowing that city council and staff justified the need for the tax increase after reducing low priority programs such as LIRC. This council, including 4 members, in the past have agreed to defund the program, and that's Councilmember Driscoll, Groves, Schlechter, and myself. Just 4 months after our citizens approved the sales tax increase, which was based on information the former council had provided the citizens, this council now wants to add back the low-priority LIRC program that will cost in excess of $300,000 and will likely increase each year. But when we took this program over, the city, it was about $150,000, and we were told that there would be other funding. Never happened. Instead, it doubled, and it's a city responsibility. I also anticipate that this council will want to increase sales tax on marijuana and add a new lodging tax. And I'm sure this council will find a way to spend that money as well. In closing, the last council earned the trust of the citizens by being financially responsible with public funds. It's my opinion that it's a disingenuous act of adding funding back into a low priority program like IRIC that we removed, and the citizens' trust that we would be have fiduciary responsibility with those funds. I think this council will not only lose the trust of our citizens going forward, this council will also be known as a tax and spend council as we go out and request more tax money. For that reason, I just cannot support this main motion.
Any other discussion on the main motion as amended? Councilmember Grove?
Yeah, I'm struggling. These points have been discussed before. I could see where they would be discussed with the amendment we previously had, but for an improper amendment, I kind of take umbrage about the fact that we can't listen and change our minds like we've all have done before when we hear different information or the environment has changed, and that we have certain values, we're representative of the citizens, but in the past, council members have changed their opinion and changed their vote, and given different situations. And I don't think there's anything wrong, and I don't kind of appreciate being chastised or stereotyped about votes I'm going to do in the future, which I haven't voted on yet. So I'm confused why this information wasn't brought forward in the previous and why we're spending time on an improper motion.
Just for the record, Councilman Grove, I wasn't chastising you.
Any other comments, discussion on this? All right, I just have one comment, or actually 2 comments. One, regard to Councilmember Valdez's comments. You know, when I was on council previously, I have no recollection of voting to defund this. I remember actually voting to fund the program after it lost the federal grant that it received. Also asking to figure out how to find more funds, but never voting to defund it. And as for the assertions that it is a low priority program, the city manager could correct me or maybe have staff. I remember seeing that, or the priority-based budgeting, this was in the second quartile, which was more aligned or whatever that says. I don't know if anyone from the library could address that or not.
It wasn't a top priority, but I'm going to defer to Tiffany Hooten to remind us all.
Sure, yeah. The LIRC program was in our quartile 3, which is less aligned, 1 through 4, so it was in 3, less aligned.
Okay, I must have seen the legal aspect of it when there was something that portion of it was too, is what I'm thinking of then.
Potentially.
So, okay, all right. Everyone ready for the question on the main motion as amended? All right, a vote yes is in favor of the ordinance as amended. A vote no is not in favor. This is the ordinance 2 of 2022.
Wouldn't allow it.
So the full motion as amended, or the main motion, original main motion as amended on the ordinance. Okay.
The vote is 5 in favor, with council members Driscoll and Valdez voting no. The motion as amended carries.
All right, thank you. So I believe with no other items on the agenda, the meeting is adjourned at 7:35 PM. Thank you.